Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com and draft.com, where if you use the promo code BOXES, you will get a free entry to your first draft. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me as always is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
Mike, no time for small talk. I'm excited to talk about LeBron.
Yeah. So LeBron is on the Cavs again, and he's one of the best players in the league. And the Cleveland Cavaliers foolishly let him go, and they're going to be living a life of basically obscurity as a franchise for the next 2 decades.
So what's crazy is all the people who cover this team and all the people around them, they're like, oh, we're still a playoff team in the East. We're still a playoff team. Like, Kevin Love on the Timberwolves could never make the playoffs, or if they did, they were bounced in the very first round. And now he's 5 years older and not as good.
Yeah, not the same type of player. Doesn't play the same position. If you haven't picked it up, we are doing our 30 games in over 30 days. We're starting with the Cleveland Cavaliers, but I actually want to give a shout out to Tyler P. Watts for finally getting that dynasty rules up on the Patreon. So if you guys go out to patreon.com/watchingtheboxes, even if you're not a subscriber, you will have the ability to see the rules for Tyler's Dynasty League. But if you want to join that Dynasty League, you need to go ahead and click subscribe on the Patreon account. That's patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. You will either be entered into the Dynasty League or Mike's Boring Redraft League. Plus, you will get exclusive content in the lead up to the season. So, Tyler, congratulations on finally getting those rules out there.
Mike, I sent you those rules 2 weeks ago, and you just didn't respond.
That's no one can prove that. That's the best part of this. Nobody can prove.
Dude, I will tweet out the picture of the day I send it to you.
Don't do that. That's not a good idea. That's personal correspondence, and that's an invasion of my privacy, and I don't feel comfortable. But also,
this was Watching the Boxes ripped. I'm excited for that.
This was on you, Tyler. So I'm glad you finally got those. You finally got those out there. Let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, because this is no LeBron, completely new team. LeBron in the West. East is wide open. And I feel like that LeBron leaving the East has really made, first off, it's made the East way worse, but it's also, I think, made it a little bit more interesting fantasy-wise, especially the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have to replace all of the production that LeBron gave them. So I guess, is that the most interesting thread, the lack of LeBron on this team?
The non-LeBron is – so they're basically the same team they were last year, minus LeBron, right? They traded LeBron for Colin Sexton.
But LeBron is the offense. He runs all the plays. He coached the team. Everybody revolved around him. They didn't run plays that didn't involve LeBron.
We talked about this all last year, right? Team? He was, in the running for number one in fantasy for the first time in how many years, all because he had to put this team on his back because they couldn't play any defense. And if LeBron didn't do it all, they weren't going to win. And so now they're just not going to win.
Yeah, they're just not going to win any games. And they also just, they don't have a cohesive team. It's just we're not even sure who's going to start on this team. I guess you got there's a potential that George Hill, I would guess, starts. Jordan Clarkson is involved there. J.R. Smith's still on the team. Kyle Korver's still on the team. Channing Frye is a person. Larry Nance Jr. is still on the team. And obviously Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson are still on the team. So it's you're saying it's a similar team. That is true, but the team is completely changed.
Well, the team, okay, in that aspect, I'm with you, but the personnel really hasn't, other than LeBron leaving, right? It's almost all the same faces that it was last year, except for we took out And we added David Nwaba, I guess. We took out LeBron and we added David Nwaba and
Respect to David Nwaba
and Colin
Underrated.
Sexton, right? Like we just did a 2-for-1 swap there. But like the names on this team aren't really any different.
If that was a fantasy trade, I would veto that as collusion. Just saying.
So what's crazy though, and I think we talk about this a lot, right? That every team's going to score 95 points and they're going to get a set number of assists, right? Like it's not like this team's not going to get any assists. But if you look at like their assists from last year, somebody's going to have to get more assists, or Colin Sexton's going to get LeBron's 8.
Yeah, someone has to replace. I mean, no one on this team averaged more than 3 assists a game, other than LeBron James. Yeah, Clarkson,
right?
You got George Hill, so I think those are kind of the front runners. But this team is going to revolve around Kevin Love now. Would you disagree with that?
Oh no, I'm not going to disagree with that.
Yeah. And Kevin Love had a pretty good year, even though he only played 59 games. He only played 28 minutes. So, I mean, chances are he's going to play a lot more than that. He averaged about 18 points, 9 rebounds, hit a little over 2 threes. He's kind of one of those last big men on the board when it comes to like that 3rd, 4th round area, even though per game he did rank 27th. And that's just because he kind of does all of the things, but he's a big man who doesn't give you blocks. And that is or really gives you assists. And that's nothing that I'm happy about.
So does he go back to Minnesota Kevin Love where he got you 4 assists a game?
The assists are going to go up. 4 assists a game seems steep.
Right, that seems like a big increase. And I don't think the rebounds are going to go up to Minnesota level.
No, like, I mean could he reach 10?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, right, if he got a few more. And we got to look at it too. Like the last 2 years, he's only played 31 and 28 minutes a game. Like if he's the horse, I mean, how much was LeBron playing last year? You know what I mean? Like could he go back up to that 35, 36 minutes he was playing in Minnesota? Especially if this team thinks they're going to be competitive.
I mean, it's definitely towards that 32, 33 range, which gives him a little bit of and then the fact that the whole team's got to revolve around him. He's going to take more shots. His field goal percentage is going to go down, but he's going to score more, probably hit more threes, maybe get a few more assists as LeBron isn't hogging the ball all day. And
I don't know if he'll get more threes. And here's why I'll say that.
Really?
I think he was, I don't know that he loves to shoot threes. He's actually gotten better at it, right? Like he was 41% for the first time ever. But I think that was more a function of LeBron attacking the basket and him just posting up at the 3-point line and catching an open look. If he's going to have the ball in his hands more, isn't he going to be the one attacking and not necessarily shooting so many spot up threes?
He could be posted up a little bit more, but he kind of got a lot of those threes off of just everybody focusing on LeBron. So, yeah, you could be right that his looks like not career highs. Actually, in the last 5 years, he averaged more 3-pointers on Minnesota than he did in his last year in Minnesota than he did on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Isn't it weird that this is year 5? Doesn't it feel like it wasn't that long ago when this Kevin Love trade happened?
Oh, yeah. It is crazy to look back and stuff like that because you're like, yeah, that happened like, what, 2 years ago? No, that was 5 years ago now. So I'll say this. ESPN has him ranked 22nd. I don't want Kevin Love as my second-round pick.
Oof, 22nd. That is aggressive. That is declaring they think he is going to be 26 and 12.
Well, yeah, and you and I talk about this a lot, right? That those small gains in steals and blocks matter a lot more because there's obviously like 1.5 or 2 is the best you're going to get in any of those categories. He just doesn't get any steals and blocks, really. He's less than a steal per game. He's probably going to be 0.8, 0.9, and somewhere around half a block. So he's never going to be a top 10 player, I don't think.
Yeah, and even if assists approve, it's not going to be significant.
So then you got the injury worry, right? I mean, he played 60 and 59 games the last 2 years. Now, the 3 years before that are 77, 75, and 77.
Yeah, so let's split the difference, right?
But the year before 77 was like 10.
That's
That was
true.
the year he broke his hand and missed almost the whole season. So I'm not super into saying it's going to be 80 games. You know what I mean? And if it's 70, sure, that's great.
That feels fine, and I feel even with like wear and tear, everybody in the league is playing somewhere between 70 and 75 games, and that's like best case scenario for almost everybody. Kevin Love here being the focal point. If you get 70 games out of him, that's fine. It's weird because there's a group of people I think who are the ESPN people who's got him ranked 22 thinks he's going to be 26 and 12. I don't think that's going to happen. Mark's got him ranked 33rd. And that's also 33, 34 is where he's being drafted in Yahoo mock drafts right now. And that feels a lot more fair, but it also feels like face value. So I do think Kevin Love is going to have a better fantasy season this year than he did last year, simply because of the situation. Drafting him at the 34th spot feels like you are picking him right around the area and hoping he gets closer to those Minnesota days. But you're picking him basically at value instead of getting a deal off of him.
I'll say this. I'm not really into Kevin Love this year. I think he's going to be better. Like I mean, we talked about it, right? He's going to be the focal point of this offense. But at pick 33, like, man, give me Marc Gasol over Kevin Love. Like, what's Kevin Love going to give me that's going to get me excited? A bunch of rebounds and a bunch of points, and maybe a few assists. Yeah, I'm just not.
It's a threes and a good free throw percentage. So if you're punting certain things, he does rise a little bit. I'd say that's where I have him pegged in that Marc Gasol, Kevin Love range there in the mid-third round, upper mid-third round. If you take a shot, I mean, I guess I'd rather take a shot on Kevin Love instead of Marc Gasol because we know who Marc Gasol is. Marc Gasol is very good. But Kevin Love does have a little bit higher upside this season, and it's worth to me. It would be worth taking Kevin Love a pick before Marc Gasol.
Fair enough.
The rest of this team is a mess.
Yeah, very hard to peg most of the other players on this team.
Yeah, so let's start with the guards. We have Sexton, George Hill, Jordan Clarkson. They did just re-sign Rodney Hood. All of those guys, excluding
They
Sexton.
also have Nwaba, right? I mean, he's a guard.
Yeah, Nwaba, and Nwaba was pretty good.
And J.R. Smith and Kyle Korver. And
well, he's a good energy guy off the bench. I want to stick to the guys who actually might handle the ball from a point guard perspective. Even though none of these guys are true point guards, it feels, except for maybe Sexton.
No.
He doesn't feel like he feels like a combo guard, but he feels like the closest to a point guard in the entire mix.
So if you look at, and it's okay, I'll say two things about Sexton. Sure. All the draft people were basically saying he profiles best as like a sixth man scorer type.
Like a combo-y guard.
Right. Think Lou Williams minus last year when Lou Williams went crazy. Think Jamal Crawford. Someone like that, right? Someone who's going to come in and get buckets. Now, was that because his Alabama teammates were less than stellar, or was that because, because he got his? If you watched an Alabama game, he got his, man. He put the ball in his hands and he tried to score. But there really wasn't another NBA-type prospect on that Alabama team. But then
does
flip
that
forward
mean
to Summer League, and he did the same thing, and there were a few halfway decent players on that Cavs Summer League team. So I think he's just going to try to get his.
You do not think he is going to be a source of assists going into next season?
Well, I mean, if you need like 3 a game, sure.
I wouldn't call that a source of assists. Like, I mean, you did say earlier those assists have to go somewhere, but as you're saying, Colin Sexton is the closest thing. As I said, he's the closest thing they have to a point guard on this team. He's not a point guard. He's not a true point guard. Maybe they try to mold him into a true point guard. That's not going to happen overnight. That's definitely not going to happen in this first year. And guards usually don't fare terribly well their rookie seasons. So,
well, especially early in their rookie seasons, right? We saw that with a ton of guys last year. Dennis Smith, De'Aaron Fox, right? Like all those big name, Lonzo Ball, right? All those guys were shooting horribly, and they really weren't doing very good for those first couple months. And then a lot of them kind of clicked it in there and got a little better.
Yeah, so Colin Sexton is being picked in Yahoo mock drafts at 132, pretty much a last or next to last round flyer. ESPN's got him ranked at 118, which feels a little high. And Mark's got him at 232, playing 26 minutes a game. That's really bad. And that's because his percentages don't.
But it's not just that.
According to his projections.
He averaged, he got 28 steals in 33 games last year for Alabama, and he got 3 blocks. 3.
I mean, that's not good either.
So this guy, and this is one reason why I don't even really want him even as a last round flyer. I think the Cavs are going to split the minutes, right? You saw guys like Clarkson and Hood. I mean, you mentioned all the names, right? They're all going to get minutes. So what is the ceiling, right? If this is the Colin Sexton's best case scenario, what does he play next season? As at the end of the season number, right? So like if the Cavs stink, he might be getting 30 minutes a game come February. But he's not going to start off at that, right? Especially, I mean, I'm telling you, like all these people keep saying to me that they think they're going to make the playoffs.
And they're going to try to win games. And if Colin Sexton's struggling, he's not going to play 20 minutes. He's not going to play 26 minutes at the beginning of the season. And his fantasy game doesn't translate. Like we're saying, like look at his blocks and steals. His percentages aren't that great. His best case scenario isn't good in a fantasy sense. And the fact that they have plenty of guys like Jordan Clarkson, like Rodney Hood, George Hill, who can play the point guard position, even though they're not true point guards. They can play the point guard position. Those guys are going to play over him. So I'm with you on not taking a flyer on Colin Sexton at all.
And here's the other thing I'll say. Like if you're in a dynasty league or some sort of keeper league, I don't know what he's really ever going to give you. Like I wouldn't be spending a lot of capital on this guy. I think his best case scenario, like I said, is he's a 6-man scorer off the bench who gives you no steals and no blocks and like 2 or 3 assists and like 2 or 3 rebounds a game. Like that's not super sexy.
No, that isn't very good at all. Let's also knock off a couple guys who are getting picked. I have no idea why these guys are getting drafted in Yahoo drafts. Kyle Korver and J.R. Smith. I'm trying to figure out where these two guys, J.R. Smith, played 28 minutes last season. Kyle Korver played 21. Are they playing more minutes? Is that what people think? Are they getting a bigger role on this team? Is that the consensus? Because even if they are, what are they going to do differently than they did last season? J.R. Smith's going to take more shots. It's probably what's going to happen.
I think this is a name recognition thing, right? People remember them on the Cavs with LeBron, and that's why I put them on this list, is to say I don't know why you're picking these guys. Like, there are 3-point streamers in a deeper league, right? They're ranked outside the top 200. Both of them should be. So they're literally 3-point streamers in a deeper league. Like if you need 2.5 to 3 3-pointers a game, I'll bank on J.R. Smith or Kyle Korver over a lot of dudes to get that.
Pour one out for Kyle Korver, still kicking it after all these years at his old age. One of the really great underrated fantasy guys when he was in his prime. Dude's not in his prime. And also the league has changed. 2 3-pointers a game is good, but it isn't great. Yeah,
right. And I mean, I guess if you play in a 3-point percentage league, like maybe there's some value there because he's always – I mean, he led the league in 2016, 2017.
Yeah. And he stayed steady and the league went up. Like, I think both of those guys getting drafted is real silly. And I would rather draft Colin Sexton than those two guys.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Even in a deeper league, right? Like, take the upside shot on Sexton because you know that JR and Korver aren't really going to give you anything other than 3-pointers made. And even like you said, even that's not a special number. It's not like it's 3 or 4. It's like 2 to 2.5.
Yeah, it's just not special. That leaves Jordan Clarkston, George Hill, and Rodney Hood, a trio of mediocrity to fill in the rest of these minutes on this team. Are you leaning towards any one of those three guys more than the other?
As far as fantasy, man, okay. So Clarkson is a get his type guy too.
Yeah, and we've seen him do it. We've seen him perform well.
But I mean, you can see the numbers when he played 32 minutes for the Lakers, which he's not going to get this year, right? He got you like 15 points, like 4 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and a steal. Like, okay, that's fine, but there's like no upside in this pick either. So for my last pick, like I don't even want him. Like, is that crazy to say? Like, I don't want him. He played 22 minutes a game last year on Cleveland. They have most of the same characters back, and they added Colin Sexton.
Yeah.
Like, what's making me think he's even going to play 25 minutes a game?
I'm with you. He had that stretch with the Lakers where he looked pretty good, but I think that was a little fool's gold. And he's already 26. He's going into his prime. It's as best as he's going to be, and right now he's not that good. I do think all these guys do. Once they adjust back to not playing LeBron ball, will figure out their way back to their old form.
If you're telling me I got to take a flyer on someone in a stand as my last pick, it's definitely George Hill, and it's not close.
Yeah, that's where I was going. If anyone could revert back to their form and be fantasy relevant, I think it's George Hill.
Well, even if you get Indiana George Hill with Paul George, okay, right? We got one of those seasons on the list here. 12 points, 4 rebounds, 3.5 assists, a steal, 1.7 3-pointers, some decent percentages. Like, okay, I'll take that as a last pick. Like, at least you're getting some decent rebounds and decent assists, a steal, and okay points.
I mean, I'll take Utah George Hill. Some points I think are going to be had because points have to come from somewhere on this team. But once again, the rest of his stats are fairly mediocre. But they are a little bit more mediocre or less mediocre. I don't know which one means better, but they are a little bit
mediocre would mean like more to the average. So I guess less mediocre.
Less mediocre. George Hill's mediocrity is less than the other two. All I'm trying to say is George Hill's better than the other two. So if you were taking a flyer in a deeper or just a bigger league, not a deeper league, but a bigger league, he's out there. You need somebody who's going to play some good minutes. You need someone with a little bit of upside. All right, cool. I think there's other players out there, but if you draft George Hill with one of your last picks, that's fine. Rodney Hood, I'm not interested in. Jordan Clarkson, I'm not interested in.
Hood and Clarkson are basically both just points dudes. They get points. Yeah. That's it. They get points. If you want points, they get a couple points. But they're more streamer points guys to me than anything though. Because they don't do anything else. You don't get anything else from those guys that's really valuable at all.
I agree. I'm staying away from those two. So I guess George Hill is the guy who's going to be
honestly
the target here.
There are 3 dudes I would say that are draftable in a standard league. They're Nance
on this team.
Yeah, Nance, Love, and George Hill. That's it.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say who's the third? George Hill barely draftable in my opinion.
Well, I mean, and we can talk about Larry Nance if you want, right? Like he gets you 1.3 steals a game in 22 minutes.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. I want to just put the kibosh on people who are interested in Tristan Thompson. Yeah, he gets rebounds. Yeah, he's gonna get rebounds. Okay, cool. If you're streaming, you're head to head, you need rebounds, and you pick with your last pick, fine. Other than that, any other type of league, stop drafting him with your 135th pick. But yeah, Larry Nance is probably the more interesting guy on the rest of this roster. And you hit it right on the head. He's like a block steal type of guy. And what's stopping him from playing a bunch next season?
Well, so it's a good thought, and I'm going to caution people by saying this. Why could he only ever get 20 minutes a game for both the Lakers and the Cavs? right? Like you can remember those Lakers team his first 2 years, like they weren't great, and they didn't. Okay, Julius Randle was playing over him, but I mean, look at some of those other guys that were playing over him. Like, why could he never get more than 22 minutes? There's got to be a reason, right?
I actually thought when he came to Cleveland, he was going to be fairly interesting running with LeBron, and he wasn't. He was for like a game or two, and then they stopped playing him.
Yeah, so I mean, Mark has him projected at 26 minutes. I think even that's generous.
Yeah.
But in 26 minutes, like his stat line will look real good. It'll be like a steal and a half and pretty close to a block and like 10 or 11 points and 8 rebounds. Like we're talking about a pretty sexy overall line.
Yeah, and a good field goal percentage and a not great, but also not you free throw percentage. So this is the flyer I would rather take in the late rounds is Larry Nance Jr.
Yeah, and here's the other thing about saying, you know, that we're banking on some of those other guys to do something they at least haven't done in a couple years. With Larry Nance, if he just gives you his stat line from last year, in 21 and a half minutes, he got 6.8 rebounds and 1.3 steals. Like he's helping you in 2 categories, and his field goal percentage is really good, but it's not helping you a ton because there's not a ton of volume, but it's a positive.
And if you care about turnovers, which you should, he doesn't ever turn the ball over. So that helps as well. But if that's not important to you because you're in a head-to-head league or an ACAT league, which is just, you know, kind of, you know, beginners type of fantasy basketball, he's just not as valuable, but still standard league relevant. So the more minutes he gets, the more valuable he becomes.
Yeah, and he's going outside the top 100 in both, right? He's ranked 135 in ESPN and Yahoo ADP. He's 109.4.
That's fine.
I mean, I'll take a flyer on him probably in a few leagues, you know, just to have him and hope that he gets more minutes. But I'm going to caution people on saying, oh, he's going to get 30 minutes a game. Like, no, I think it's probably like 25 max. But
yeah,
maybe that's just me.
Little aggressive there, but that's my late round flyer. Wow, what a bad team. That team is going to not be good.
I got the deep league guy I want to talk about.
Yeah.
It's this Cedi Osman.
It's not Sam Decker?
No. And here's what I'll say. Some of the coaches have been touting this guy. He just dropped 25 points in an international game. I'm not saying he's going to get minutes at the beginning of the season, but if I'm drafting 200 or 300 players in my league, you might want to take kind of a last round flyer on this guy. He's ranked 423rd in ESPN leagues.
I think I would draft him a little higher than 300, you know?
Yeah, right. And so I'm talking about like, okay, if I pick him at 180,
yeah,
I think I got a shot to get a little bit of value. Now, here's the issue with him. He's not going to produce any defensive stats, but he could get you some points, some decent rebounds, some threes, shoot a decent field goal percentage. He's a bucket getter. If you need a bucket getter in a deep league, he may not be the worst flyer.
And you're also this is a weird team that doesn't really have any wings. So if he can play that position, and Kyle Korver's getting older, so who knows how his health will go. J.R. Smith is always a loose cannon.
Well, and here's the thing, too. If they stink, which I think they're going to.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what's the sense in holding Kyle Korver and J.R. Smith and, you know, all these guys out in their 30s, right? Like, just move them.
Yeah, this is going to be the biggest variant team out there, because if they think they're going to make the playoffs and they're like just 0-13, you know, like – it's going to be probably a fire sale. Even Kevin Love could get moved. So this just could be completely different of an analysis come December, you know, come January. This might not be relevant at all.
Who was the 30-year-old guy who dropped like the 20 points last year? Andre Graham. Is that his name? This is my this was one of my top 2 or 3 teams for that to happen this year, right? Like just some random guy out of the G League you've never heard of at the end of the season, like puts up a 25-point game on the Cavs.
And I respect that. I think that is it for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's bury this team. I'm very happy to see them not being competitive for the next decade or so. Thank you, LeBron James, for leaving that franchise high and dry with no draft picks. That's it. We're going to continue our 30 games in over 30 days series, and we want you to send us your feedback. So either rate and review us on whatever you're listening to this to, or tweet at us at Watch the Boxes. For me and Tyler is at Tyler P. Watts, WATTS. And if you want to get into Tyler's Dynasty League or my boring redraft league, or even an experimental 3-category league that we might or might not do, go check out patreon.com/watchingtheboxes.
Can I say something about your 3-category league?
Feel free. I know you got something negative to say about it, Tyler.
It's a 5-category league. You're just adding 2 things in 2 of the categories.
Well, that is your opinion. And also,
it is a 5-statistic league, but there's only 3 categories.
Yeah. It
doesn't make any sense. Why is it not just 5 categories?
We're gonna, we're out there trying new things with some of the other analysts out there in the fantasy world.
Math on my fantasy time. I don't want to do that.
You're not gonna have to. There's things called computers. It'll do all the math for you.
But what if I'm watching the game and I want to know how many points Dirk Nowitzki's got me today?
Well, I don't know what to tell you.
You gotta add and subtract. I'm not good at that. I only got 10 fingers and 10 toes.
Just we'll do it on Fantrax, and that way it'll be updated live. No one will have a problem. So go check out patreon.com/watchingtheboxes if you want to get into one of these ridiculous leagues, or just the boring redraft league. Subscribe. We really appreciate all our subscribers out there. You guys are all awesome, and we will catch everybody for the next team. Have a good one, everyone. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com and draft.com, where if you use the promo code BOXES, you will get a free entry to your first draft, even if it is a football draft. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me as always is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler? You there, man?
There we go. Now you can hear me. Can you hear me now?
Perfect. I can hear you now.
All right.
What's up, Tyler?
Oh, Michael, what a fine day it is today, isn't it?
It's a good day to get kidnapped by Doc Rivers and drug out of Dallas on a cart. Just like screw over Mark Cuban. That's what the kind of day it feels like. It's nice out. It's been warm. And it feels like a good day to get kidnapped by your former team.
Oh, Michael, you got to bring up bad memories already, don't you?
That was like the wildest 24 hours in NBA history. Like, we're going to look back on that. It's like the OJ car chase. That started almost reality TV, basically, back in the 90s. And the DeAndre Jordan summer of kidnapping was
Emoji Gate. That's what people call it now. I don't know why.
Emoji Gate.
Because if you remember, all the Clippers players were sending out the tweets with the emojis, like
that's
the plane and the car and the boat and the bike.
A lot of banana boats. A lot of banana boats in there. That was I feel like that was the summer the NBA jumped to a 365 league.
Well, and NBA, I feel like that was the summer too. NBA Twitter exploded. It became a big thing, a bigger thing.
Now it's the thing. Like that's what's spurring the entire league forward.
I feel like some people only follow on Twitter. I feel like there's a certain percentage of fans who are only Twitter followers. They just watch the little GIFs pop up and sweet dunks and.
That's all you really have to do. And if you're an NBA owner or part of the league, the actual league, the NBA, what do you care if they're going to games and buying merch and and that spurs more interest. They were so smart in just saying, yeah, put all that stuff, do funny videos, throw that up on the internet, do whatever you want with it. It's publicity. The NFL, especially the MLB and the NHL, they take that crap down. They're idiots. They have no idea how social marketing works, apparently. So, you know, they're behind, and the NBA is in front when it comes to dominating Twitter.
Dominating Twitter. I like that. That's bold. That's powerful.
NBA is dominating Twitter, and the Dallas Mavericks are going to dominate the rest of this podcast. We are doing our 30 teams in over 30 days series, and we are over halfway done. Thank goodness. But also, we are putting out some exclusive content on our Patreon. So go check out patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. We have exclusive content up there, rankings. We're going to be doing some extra podcasts that will be only exclusive to Patreon subscribers. And you can also enter Tyler's Dynasty League. I think we still got like one more spot left on that Dynasty League. But the rules are up there. And so anybody can check out those rules. Or you might get into Mike's experimental 3-category league, or just a boring redraft league. So
listen, if you want to play in the Dynasty League, I think we can make it happen regardless. So if that's really what you want to sign up for, sign yourself up.
There you go. You heard it straight from Tyler. We are going to get you in a Dynasty League if that is what you desire. So go to patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. Tyler, what is the most interesting thing about the Dallas Mavericks next season?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of really interesting things about the Dallas Mavericks, I think, for next season. They had an underratedly good offseason, I think.
Okay.
And I could probably talk about this for a really long time, so I don't know how in-depth you want me to go to. But so basically, their biggest deficiency last year was rebounding and interior defense, right? They just didn't really have a center. I mean, they got Dirk, who's still a great offensive player, and I'm sure we'll talk about Dirk a little bit. They really just didn't have anybody who could protect the rim. They brought in DeAndre Jordan, who's, you know, one of the top 2 rebounders in the league and a good rim protector. They added a secondary playmaker in Luka Doncic, which is something they desperately needed. So this team could be a lot better.
How better is a lot better?
Well, okay,
Playoffs
so
better?
They tied for the 3rd worst record in the NBA, right?
They certainly did.
So
because for some reason, the Chicago Bulls decided to win games down the stretch, Tyler. That's the only reason.
So a lot of people will ask me that, right? Are they a playoff team? They can still be really, like, make a big improvement and not make the playoffs. Like this, we talk about this all the time. The Western Conference is crazy deep. It added LeBron, who was also not on a playoff team from last year. So, you know, when we talk about the playoffs in the Western Conference, like, someone's going to have to sit out, right? Dallas, Denver, Utah.
Quite a few teams are going to have
to
sit
out. Give me the 10th seed in the West over the 7th or 8th seed in the East, right?
Probably give me the 10th seed in the West over the 5th seed in the East.
Oh, we can talk about the East. Really only has 3 teams that I would say would be pretty competitive in the West.
Sure.
Boston, Philly, and Milwaukee. All the other teams in the East might be worse than like the 10th or 11th seed in the West.
They might be a Dallas Mavericks-esque type of team.
Yeah. So I think the additions are interesting in the sense that they tried to plug their holes. How well is that going to work out? Well, that remains to be seen. If they're 20 wins better, they still might not make the playoffs. Like, if they're 20 wins better, they're only going to be right around 500. They won 24 games last year.
And
so 500
only gets you into the playoffs if you're in the East. Let's talk about one of those additions to that team. Let's talk about DeAndre Jordan.
So I'm mad about this.
About what?
ESPN ranked him 24th.
That's terrible.
Well, in a head-to-head league, right? Like, he was always kind of in that 25 to 30 range if you punted free throws because he's real good in those other categories. But they took all the value out of it. So now there's no point in drafting him. There's no point in drafting him in an ESPN league.
Well, if not at 24, there's not. there's a point in drafting him. I'd say if you get a much better deal on DeAndre Jordan, and you should not be drafting him before Andre Drummond if you're in a head-to-head
Oh,
league.
no, Andre Drummond is ranked like 15th in ESPN's leagues.
Wow. So they're just going straight up head-to-head type rankings.
Yes.
And that's really not, I mean, that's not my thing. I'm a roto guy. You know that. Everybody else knows that. And Mark's rankings are based on 9 categories as well. And he's got him ranked 51st, which is exactly where people are drafting him in Yahoo drafts. So 51 in a head-to-head league feels really, really nice.
Here's
51 in a roto league, not so much.
Here's something else I'll say, right? And we can talk that roto discussion if that's what you want to do. But look at those numbers in Mark's projection too. Like he's scored 12.7, 12.7, and 12 points the last 3 years. Mark's only got him down for 10.8. Now he did have the block number coming back a little bit, but he's also got the rebounds at 13.9. There are no good rebounders on this Mavericks team. It wouldn't surprise me to see Jordan at like 14, 15 a game in the rebounds this year. We've seen him do it before, and the team is a much worse rebounding team. He's also going to shoot his usual 65 to 70% just because they're not going to ask him to do anything. They've got ball handlers. They've got lots of guys who can shoot and get their own shot. They're literally going to ask him to be what I like to call the garbage man, right? He cleans up the glass. He fights hard for a rebound. He's going to do all the stuff no one else wants to do.
And I'm just kind of wondering, like, why am I not pegging him in for the exact same stats as he got last year? The free throw percentage was up to 58%, which was kind of miraculous. So that felt sustainable. It was all last year. I don't know if he's going to return to form back to, basically like in the mid 40s is where he used to be.
Well, we've seen it slowly ticking up too. That's what made it
getting better. He's been working at it.
So, and 58, and we can talk about this too. It made the attempts go way down because no one hacked him then, right? When he was at 43, he had 8 attempts a game. Then he got up to 48, and it was 5.2. Then he got up to 58, and it was 4.1 a game. Teams were a lot less willing to hack him at 58%.
That's very true.
And so he needs to be over 50 to keep from teams just going straight for him.
Those blocks went way down, but you can chalk that up to maybe motivation. So the uptick in blocks from Mark's projections doesn't feel ludicrous. He's only got him at, 1.3?
Yep.
So that's perfectly fine. Other than that, like, all right, look what he did last year, 12 and 15. All right, I just don't see what's going to be significantly different about DeAndre Jordan this year than last year, other than maybe a little bit better motivation to play.
Oh, nothing. But that's what I mean. So he's ranked 51st in Mark's rankings, and I think that the numbers, if you look at Mark's projections, I think the numbers could be a little tiny bit better. But like you're saying, he's probably going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick in a head-to-head league, and in a roto league, you're probably not drafting him at all.
I mean, I kind of disagree with not drafting him in a roto league, but I don't agree with drafting him in the top 100. DeAndre Jordan should 15 rebounds a game.
So in my experience, though, that means
something to pay attention to.
That means I'm not drafting him at all, though, because someone always picks him in the 50s or 60s.
Oh, yeah. I've never owned DeAndre Jordan.
Right?
In my roto league.
And that's kind of my point about it is you're not gonna get that much of a discount unless everybody's a roto specialist. And in my experience, when I play roto leagues, there's not that many guys who realize the difference between roto and head-to-head.
Correct.
So
unless you're in a league of people who know what they're doing. And right. in that case, there's still the game of, well, someone's got to be – if I'm the worst in free throw percentage by 0.02% or 12%, it's the exact same number. If you're the worst, you're the worst. And so then all of a sudden 15 rebounds a game makes you a 10 in rebounds, or at least a top-tier rebounder. And you can balance that stuff out, but you have to make that decision, and you have to make and go all in on those types of decisions, because getting a last in a category is very detrimental. And I never want to start my roto league out like that. But DeAndre Jordan, for some teams is going to be ownable.
Well, and here's the other thing too. There's 3 or 4 of these guys who are definitely your punting free throws.
Yeah.
So are you necessarily, if Jordan can shoot 58, are you going to be last? Probably not. The guy who drafts Andre Drummond is probably going to be last. The guy who drafts Dwight Howard might be below you too.
For sure. Now, Dwight Howard, I'm not sure, is ownable in roto leagues. I think sometimes he can be. I think DeAndre Jordan is more ownable in roto leagues. But like you're saying, if people are putting these guys on their teams, and you could be third to last in free throw, but first in field goal and rebound, well, that's a strategy you could head towards.
So it takes, and this is one thing I like about roto leagues, right? It takes a lot of fudging the numbers, finagling the numbers.
Well, every league is different, right? Every league is beholden to the makeups of the teams of the other people. That's why, and we're gonna do a punt versus or a head-to-head versus roto podcast in the future, maybe with a special guest star joining us. But
it's just me doing a different voice. Don't
it's just us wearing mustaches. The roto leagues require you to adjust to the league itself, while a head-to-head league just makes you punt and you got to win 5 categories. Cool. There's just a lot more strategy when it comes to a roto league, which makes some guys just really not valuable at all, or can become valuable depending on the makeup of your league. And DeAndre Jordan's one of them.
I'll share with you a cool strategy I've been employing in head-to-head the last couple of years that I think may be the new secret to winning all strategies someday. You guys can look forward to that.
We will talk about.
That's not for today though, because that's a long talk and we don't have that much time.
Yeah, we are going to talk about that in the head-to-head versus roto podcast. But DeAndre Jordan for me is in a roto league. Since I play roto, is the 3rd guy, maybe even the 4th guy I'd be drafting on this team, believe it or not. I'd much rather, maybe even the 5th guy. I think Luka Doncic is the top fantasy player on this team, and that is saying a lot when it comes to a rookie who is going to play kind of a guard forward. Like I don't know what kind of positionless basketball basically is what Luka Doncic is playing.
Maybe some people know this, maybe they don't. I don't know. So I cover the Dallas Mavericks for Fansided, and so I'm pretty tuned in to what's going on here. Coach Carlisle says that he plans on playing Doncic 1 through 4.
Beautiful.
He's going to, depending on the lineup and the situation, like he's going to give
asset him to have on your fantasy team.
Right, he's going to give him minutes at point guard, at shooting guard, at small forward, and at power forward. He's going to play him 1 through 4 at points throughout the season. And he's a big guy. He's like 6'8" and like 220 pounds.
Yep.
So he can handle it. He's going to school a lot of these guys. Like I make this comp, and it's not the best, but he's going to be like Ben Simmons, right? He's going to play point guard at points. And if you don't put a bigger guy on him, he's going to school these point guards by just taking them down and being bigger and stronger. If you put a bigger guy on him, Doncic is going to use his great passing ability and school a big man.
Yeah, he's not slow. He's not unathletic. A lot of people are kind of throwing those words out there when it comes to Luka Doncic. The guy's the most decorated European basketball player, and most of those guys, when they come over in their mid-20s, Luka Doncic is 19.
He is 19. And he won the MVP in both the Spanish League for Real Madrid and the Euro League last year. And I don't care who you are, okay, Euro League is the 2nd best basketball league in the world. He was the most valuable player as an 18-year-old kid in the 2nd best professional league in the world.
Playing against grown-ass men.
Right, playing against men in their 30s, playing against plenty of guys who've played in the NBA and went over there because they can make more money.
Dudes in Croatia who will foul the crap out of you.
And so we can talk about this if you want. Most people look at his 3-point percentage, especially for the last 2 years, and they're a little bit scared of it.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's a shorter line in international, which is true. Coach Carlisle has been making the point that there's also less space, right? If the three-point line is shorter, there's more people condensed into a packed space, right? So he's making the theory that he's seen Doncic shoot, and if you've seen Doncic shoot, he has a real nice stroke. He thinks with the more spacing in the NBA, because the court is bigger and the three-point line is back further, that he's going to shoot real well from three because he's going to have more room. There's also a lot better players, and they're not going to ask Doncic to be the only guy. Like, if you watched Real Madrid a lot last year, they put the ball in Doncic's hands, and they said, go make a play, kid. And you can see some of the three-points, even some of the ones he was making. They're step backs. There's a dude right in his face, and he's making those real tough shots.
He has, like, NBA moves. He has NBA talent. He has NBA skills already. He's very – like, Tatum has those moves. Luka Doncic has those moves. I'm not trying to compare those two guys, but Tatum was able to play at an NBA level and at a good fantasy level right out the gate. And Luka Doncic is going to be able to do the same thing, and that's why I think he's the best fantasy player on this team. He's going to handle the ball. He's going to get good assists, good rebounds. His steals are going to be fine. His shooting's probably good. His percentages are going to probably be a little bit lower than you desire. But he's going to score and get you assists, threes, and rebounds, and that's nice.
And here's another thing I'll say that he's got a big advantage over other rookies. He played 73 games last year for Real Madrid.
Yeah.
The average NBA rookie played 33 to 35 games last year in college. So he's ready to handle this workload. We can talk about Yahoo ADP 102. That's just insane, man. If I can get him outside the top 100, I am spiking the football. I'm thinking I beat you in the league already.
So here's the thing about that ADP. So Luka Doncic is ranked in Yahoo way, way lower than that, but he's being drafted at 102. I'm mostly drafting him at the ESPN rank around 72.
I still think there's some decent value in that.
Yeah, I think there's value there, and that's why I'm usually grabbing him around that range. Here's the thing. All it's going to take, because he didn't play in Summer League, all it's going to take is
I will say this. Most people have never seen this man play basketball.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Once he plays one good preseason game, all these ranks, all these average draft positions, all that stuff, they're all going to flip. Everybody loves a sexy rookie. Everybody loves a guy who is a big dude who can handle the ball, shoot threes, dish the ball out. He's going to be good fantasy-wise. I'm afraid all of his value is going to disappear once he has one good preseason game.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about that. So I want him outside the top 50. I think if you're picking him in the top 50, that takes away a lot of his value.
I agree.
I'd be willing to look at him, though, at like 51, 52. Now, there might be better guys on the board that I like a little bit more. I find myself, when I'm picking him around 60. I feel pretty comfortable with that. I think he's going to be a real good fantasy asset. He's going to contribute pretty much across the board. I think he's probably even going to give you half a block. Pretty close. And so, I mean, that just sounds like a real sexy player to me.
Yeah, he's one of the few guys I've been encouraging people to reach for if they want him. If you feel comfortable with him, if you like him, you're in that 50, 60, 70 range, like you should draft him, because if you're playing with people who are in the know, you know, he's not going to go much past 60.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you there. And like you said, that number's only going to go up. It's not going to go down. People are going to see him play finally and be like, dude, this guy's really good.
Oh, yeah, it turns out, who would have thought?
And I think we talk about this with a lot of rookies. He'll probably shoot poorly in the first month or two. That's okay. Like, you can't get discouraged and drop him or trade him away. Like, you got to realize that there's an adjustment period for every player coming into the NBA. And he's going to turn it around fast. I think his adjustment curve will be much shorter than some other players because he's already got a lot of professional experience.
Yeah. In the expert draft that we participated in, Luka Doncic went near the back end of the 5th round. So that is where I think people who are in the know, back into the 5th round, beginning of the 6th round, that is in a 12-team draft. That is where he is kind of being pegged right now. And if you're looking at rankings or average draft positions right now, adjust them based on the experience of your league.
Okay, so here's one last question I want to ask you.
Okay.
Startup Dynasty League draft, we'll say snake draft. Where are you going to pick Luka Doncic?
Wow. I mean, that's a pretty tough question.
Mike only league.
The rookie draft or just the draft? The dynasty draft.
Yep. So you can have anybody. You can have Russell Westbrook or Doncic or Steven Adams or anybody, right? All players available. I don't know why I was only saying Thunder players.
I don't either.
Maybe it was just Mavericks and Thunder draft in my head.
Man, I feel like he's I hesitate to put him in my top 20. Somewhere between 20 and 30.
Yeah, see, and even that price, and I think sometimes this is where people fall off the boat in a dynasty league.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this guy's really, really good. But you talk about this all the time, right? To bust into that top 20 is not easy.
Not at all.
And there's a lot of really good players in the NBA who are not top 20 fantasy players. So for me, I probably in a startup dynasty league don't own this guy because someone's going to do in that 20 to 30 range, someone's going to snag him. And I probably have him more in the late 30s. Plus, I like to try to win that first year. And so picking Doncic super high when I could have, I mean, I don't know, name any second round pick, Damian Lillard or, you know, Paul George or Jimmy Butler. Like, give me those guys. Those guys have done it for a long time. They're good. They're really, really good.
I'm much more interested in the top 30 players than usually rookies. But I'd say like Jason Tatum is the exception. I'd pick Jason Tatum over Luka Doncic in that 20 to 30 range. Luka Doncic, though, I do think his youth, his kind of interesting position on the court, and the fact that he could be kind of a across the board type player interests me enough to take him in that 20 to 30 range. And he could do enough. His ceiling is definitely maybe that second tier, maybe second tier of fantasy basketball. And it might take a while, but he's also a pretty good asset in a dynasty league. He's a hot name. He's a young guy, and if you're souring on him, you could definitely move him.
Yeah, and I don't think you're going to sour on him.
I don't think I'm going to either. Let's talk about Harry Barnes. This guy in Mark's rankings, 75th. Yahoo's got him being drafted around 75th, and ESPN's got him ranked 83rd. Feels pretty normal, right? Like we know who this guy is. He's 26 years old, so he's going to his prime. He's a bulk scorer. He doesn't do too much else. He does get you better rebounds than a lot of the boring bulk scorers down near the bottom half of the draft. He's a good puzzle piece for people looking for bulk scoring.
So averaged 19 points a game in his 2 seasons with the Mavericks. So
yeah,
exactly 19 points. He's led the Mavericks in scoring each of the last 2 years. Does he lead the Mavs in scoring this year?
Yes.
I think so too, probably. I think it might come down just a little bit. And the thought process behind that is Doncic is going to have the ball. Jordan's going to be there to be more of the pick and roll man, right? Barnes is not going to have to set as many screens as he did last year. So Barnes is going to become a little bit more of a catch-up, spot-up shooter in the offense, especially when it's Smith Jr., Doncic, Jordan, him, and probably Wesley Matthews. That should increase his field goal percentage, though, right? Because he's a real good spot-up shooter. We've seen that on the Warriors when he played for them.
Yep.
So if he goes down to 18 or 17 and a half points, but he shoots 46 or 47% from the field, you're not really losing any value. So yeah, I think everybody pegged him pretty well. He's like the 75th best player.
Yeah. and he might have some minor adjustments to what he does on this team based on the new players on the team, like you said. But like Harrison Barnes is Harrison Barnes. Now he's ranked 75th. He's getting pick 75th. I'm not taking him 75th. He's definitely a guy who, unless you're desperate for points, who falls back past 80 into the 90 range. And that's when you're getting a good value. And that's when I will be targeting Harrison Barnes in Roto leagues.
I'm with you. There's just not. I mean, at pick 75, that's where he's going to rank. Like he's the 75th best player, so there's not a ton of value there. I'm with you on that.
Speaking of the 75th best player, on per game averages last year in 9-cat leagues, the 75th best player was Dirk Nowitzki in 24 minutes. Can you believe it? Dirk is a top 100, top 75 player.
A 39-year-old Dirk.
Can you believe this? It is insane. It is nonsense, and it is a testament to the legend and the NBA legend and the fantasy legend that is Dirk Nowitzki. Does he got enough in him to run it back this year?
Yeah. So I've been telling people this since I started working at the Smoking Cuban. Expect a very similar stat line from Dirk. They're going to want to manage his minutes. He's going to play like 25 a game. He's going to shoot the ball super efficient. That's what Dirk does. Dirk, I mean, if you watch Dirk play last year, there's nothing about that wasn't repeatable for Dirk, right? He doesn't do too much. He spots up. He finds his shots. Like, what's going to be worse about Dirk this year? He's 40 instead of 39. That's it.
Yeah, my favorite part, maybe he plays a few less games. Maybe he plays one less minute, right? But they need that spot, and he's still effective. His defense it keeps slowly disappearing, but he was never like the greatest defender. Yahoo average draft position is 120. ESPN ranks him at 202. They don't know what they're talking about. In Mark's rankings have him at 111. I probably won't be drafting Dirk Nowitzki unless it's with my last pick, or I'm in a bigger or deeper league, and then I'm probably taking him around that 120, 130 spot. You're going to get a great value for him because I think people are just overlooking him.
Well, and I think we see this a lot, and it's how the standard league mentality carries over to deeper leagues, right? And I try to dispel this myth all the time. If it's a deeper league, you don't want the guy who has a high upside at pick 120. You want someone like Dirk, because Dirk's going to give you some value on that pick for sure. You want those high upside players with your last few picks. If it's a mid-round pick, you want someone who's going to produce you good value.
Yeah, because the mid rounds in a big league or a deeper league aren't 6 through 11. They're now 10 through 15, and you want to fill out your roster correctly.
Right, and so you could take the upside shot on, I don't know, Cedi Osman from the Cavs.
Don't do it.
But when he produces you, value of the 250th best player for the whole season, but he dominates in February when you're already out of the playoffs, well, that stinks for you.
Yeah, I agree. If you're in a bigger league, you take Dirk with your last pick, especially in a Roto League. I got all the respect for you. That's a good move. Let's talk about the other two guys on this team that are worth talking about. Dennis Smith Jr. Mark's got him ranked 112th. He's being drafted at 70 in Yahoo. I do not know what that's about. Dennis Smith Jr. Higher ceiling than most. Kind of this is the higher ceiling pick that you're talking about. But very poor percentages, especially from the Roto perspective. I'm not happy about that. That makes him way less valuable to me. But he's a good scorer. He gets assists and rebounds. Is there any cause to make Dennis Smith a sleeper like player, since you know a lot about the Dallas Mavericks now, Tyler?
So yes and no. If it's Mark's rankings, sure, he's got some sleeper appeal because he's outside the top 100. At 94 and basically pick 70 or 69, right? Like, how much better is he really going to be? So if you look at Mark's projection of 112, like, there's one thing I'll quibble with. I think he'll shoot better than 39.5 or 40% this year. The thought process.
I hope so, but how much better?
Okay, well, just listen to this thought process.
Okay,
here.
okay.
So it's not uncommon for second-year players to get 2 to 3% better on their field goal percentage from their rookie season. Agree with that?
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Right? Like, a lot of them just struggled really hard early on. I was talking about that earlier, and then they kind of pick it up. So they play at the new level to start the next season, which is 2 or 3% higher. Okay, so that puts them at like 41.5, let's say. Okay. Now, he was really good on catch and shoot and spot up shots last year. And if you got a subscription to a website like Cleaning the Glass or Synergy, you can look up the numbers. They're good. They're real good. He's going to be asked to do that more because last year he had the ball in his hands a lot. Now he's got Luka Doncic to take that playmaking and roll away. And in the second unit, JJ Barea is there. And say what you want about JJ Barea. JJ Barea is real good at running Rick Carlisle's offense. So, you know, Dennis Smith Jr. is an awesome dunker. He's a highlight reel player, and I get that that's why, you know, people know the name, and that's why his ADP is up and his rank is up on ESPN probably. So here's kind of where I picture it. I'm saying he shoots like 42.5 to 43% from the field.
Okay, that's a big movement, but fair.
But there's a much better talent around him too.
Sure,
and that's the big reason I think that it's that much better.
That's fair. Okay, assists probably up a little bit as well.
The assists, you know, potentially go to, and here's the other thing too. He should play more minutes. He only played 29.7 last year. He should be over 30, probably closer to 31, 32. He's going to probably score a little bit more, assist a little bit more. I don't understand why Mark projected his block numbers to go down. I don't think that they'd go up necessarily, but I think they kind of hold steady right there. I think the turnovers could go potentially down or hold right where they are. They'll actually probably hold right where they are because they'll play a little more minutes.
Sure.
So I think he's just going to be better than he was last year. Now, to say that he's a top 70 player, that might be a stretch, right?
That's definitely a stretch. Maybe, let's say he proves a little in the assists. He's a good rebounder for a guard, but here's the thing. Unless you're in a head-to-head league where you're punting your percentages, these percentages still kill you. His free throw percentage is very, very bad. Even if he pops up to about 42% as you're thinking from field goal range, like that helps him be relevant in a roto league, but it's still going to put a decent hurt on your field goal percentage. So if I'm in a roto league, I'm taking him as a flyer in my last handful of rounds. I'm definitely not taking him at 70. If I'm at a head-to-head league, though, and I don't care about my percentages, 70, 80, 90 range, if I'm in need of a point guard getting some assists, he's a starting point guard in the league.
Here's what I'll say.
Those are hard to find. So I get if you're taking him in that range in a head-to-head league, but in a roto league, you just can't do it.
I would say this. In Yahoo leagues, if that ADP holds, I'm not even really looking at him above pick 70. I'm just not doing it.
No.
In ESPN leagues, sure, I will look at him after the top 75 or 80 players. So I could own him in an ESPN league. But in Yahoo, like, obviously, like, every draft's different. But if that ADP is what holds, right, he's a top 70 player, that's not for me.
I mean, that's probably his ceiling. His threes and steals just aren't good enough to warrant being a top 70 player, even with the extended minutes. So, and you have to ignore his field goal percentage completely, and his free throw percentage as well.
So, who would you rather have, Dennis Smith Jr. or Barnes? Because Dennis Smith Jr. is getting picked first in Yahoo.
And I probably Barnes in both a head-to-head and roto league.
That's what I mean. And so that I think Yahoo, whether that's the rankings or just the people, I think they're overrating him a bit too much.
Well, they're doing something over there. Let's talk about, I mean, Wesley Matthews. He's still on this team, believe it or not. He's still playing on this team. He's still playing 30-plus minutes on this team. He had a pretty basic Wesley Matthews season last year.
So here's the one thing I'll say about Wesley Matthews.
Yeah.
Got 44% on corner threes last year.
That's nice.
This team doesn't need him to handle the ball anymore. So if we can just spot up Wesley Matthews in the corner and let him take most of his shots there, that could increase his value some.
Yeah,
he make him relatively standard league relevant.
He's got more distributors on the team, so that's nice. He's hit 2.4 threes a game for the last 3 seasons. So it's fair to say that will stay steady. If not, maybe slightly improve. Just because he's getting the ball from more people on the team. But everything else here is pretty normal. 13 points, a little over steal. That's nice. I'm a little surprised by his ADP. And I think it's just because he's an old name. He's been around a long time. There's nothing interesting about him, nothing exciting about him. He's being drafted at 145. So basically a last round, close to the last round pick in Yahoo. ESPN's got him ranked 205, which seems aggressively low. And Mark has him down to only playing 29 minutes per game and got him at 165. I'm a little surprised if you're in a punting strategy with Wesley Matthews. He's definitely if you don't care about your field goal percentage, he's definitely a top. I would say maybe even if he's playing the same minutes, like he's a top 100 player if you don't care about field goal percentage.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's probably standardly viable this year, and you can get a nice value on him. So I'll say this about Yahoo's ADP too. You got to remember that a lot of their drafts are 12-team leagues, and so a lot of people who are getting picked in some leagues and they're not getting picked in others, their ADP is like 150, right? In all those other leagues, so that pushes it up.
At all, or they're getting picked at 120 or something like that, or 110, and it's averaging out to bad.
So instead of the league though, okay, he's ranked 205 in ESPN, unless the most leagues don't go to the 205th pick to drop that number down further. He's not getting picked to pick 200 in any Yahoo leagues because most of them are 12 teams. So he's not getting picked at all. So they're just giving him an ADP in that particular draft at 150. So see how that pushes up the number?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's basically free in any league. And I think that might be a little bit of a mistake in a head-to-head league, like you said, where you're punting field goal percentage. He could be pretty useful to your team.
Definitely, he's up in that. We were saying 1.5 3-pointers isn't a big deal. He's getting 2.5 3-pointers, so that's a nice category to stuff there. But you're also getting over a steal a game with those 3-pointers. He's also going to give you some good points for being in the. In that late rounds. That's a solid amount of points. We talk a lot about these guys. I think we talked about all the Cavaliers in the last episode. Not a great team to look at. You got Clarkson, you got Rodney Hood. It's hey, those guys are going to give you points. Well, Wes Matthews is going to give you maybe the same amount or a little less amount of points, but he's going to give you good threes and he's going to give you steals, which are extra categories that are good for you, and especially in your head-to-head build. Even in a roto league, he's not a great name or anything like that, but he's worth keeping an eye out on. He's only 32. So Wes Matthews, I think, is very underrated. But that ceiling is, where you see it right now. There's no super upside there, but he's could finish in the top 100 per game easily.
And so there's really only one other guy to talk about. He's not going to play a ton of minutes, probably 22, 23 minutes. But JJ Barea, last 2 seasons, 5.5 and 6 assists. He's an assist streamer, and even in limited minutes. Yeah, so if you need assists in the end of your matchup, and JJ Barea is playing on a Sunday, you're not going to find anyone better on the waiver wire to get you assists.
Yeah, a great streamer for sure. Definitely got me out of a handful of jams out there. Bigger leagues do take note. That's a lot of assists for a guy who's going to be overlooked. But not draftable in any standard leagues. I think that's it for the Dallas Mavericks, who I might watch quite a few games of this year. I know Tyler will. Tyler, what is the website you are writing for for the Dallas Mavericks?
It is thesmokingcuban.com.
And where can people follow you on Twitter?
You can follow me at Tyler P. Watts.
Beautiful. And you can follow me at Watch the Boxes. Listeners, we really appreciate you guys, and we want to keep the podcast going. So do us a favor, rate, review us, leave us feedback, tweet at us with stuff you want to hear on the way to the your draft, your season. And if you really want some exclusive content or you want to join one of the listener leagues, go to patreon.com/watching the boxes. Subscribe to the Patreon. You'll be sent exclusive content, including some rankings, some podcasts that are exclusively for you subscribers. So go check that out, patreon.com/watching the boxes. And we will catch you next time on our 30 teams in over 30 days. Thanks, everybody.